So well done if you've made it to the end of the Acts readings, made it through the whole book, chapter 28. Here we are, the end of the story. Moves quite fast, doesn't it? Like it's a pretty quick zip through to the end. So what's going on? I like the word vindication. I just think it's a cool word. But I think this is Paul's vindication. He's at the end of his life. Well, the end of this story, not the end of his life. But he's kind of taken on all this stuff. He's been through all this difficulty. Life's been really hard. And yet he's kind of got to the very end. And everyone said, you're going to be chained, you're going to be thrown in prison, like it's all going to go wrong. He's had these prophetic words. And they've all come true. But he's in quite a nice situation. He's in the capital at Rome, the capital of the world at that point. He's got a place to live. And yeah, he's got a soldier watching him. But nobody's got any beef with him. The Jewish leaders there haven't got any beef with him. He seems to be fine. So he's cool. And he's got 2 years to preach the gospel there. And he's in the centre making a real difference and influencing the whole of the world from that centre that is Rome. So it's all worked out for him. And I think that's why Luke kind of zips through this last chapter. And it's great to see somebody who's listened to God, stuck to what he said, seen it through, and it's worked out. And I love that hope. His hope hasn't been deferred. His hope has been fulfilled. His longing has been fulfilled, and it's a tree of life to him, and he's seen it all happen. Paul has just given up his life to Jesus and received it back. He's been to the cross, and here he is living in the resurrection victory. What do you think you're living for? What's the big picture of where you're going? I remember when I arrived here 5 years ago, I felt like God said to me, 2020, there'll be 10,000 people, 10,000 people in church in Coventry. There'll be 10% of the city in church in 2020. And I heard that, and I heard it as a pressure and a weight, like, how am I going to make that happen? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's, we're a city of 300,000 plus, maybe 330,000, something like that, 350,000 people. So 10% is, you know, well over 30,000 people in church across the city. And that wasn't where we were in 2019, and it didn't look possible. But through online church, God has made that word true. But I heard it as a pressure, and God meant it as a, hey, look what I'm going to do. And when God calls us into stuff, it is a hard journey, and it is a journey to the cross, via the cross to resurrection, just like Jesus' journey. That's the Christian life. But Paul's kind of come through that whole journey. So what are you being called to do, and what are you expecting? If God's calling you into something, do you just expect it to be some kind of woo, where it's all going to fly and it's all going to get better and better? Or is it going to be like Paul's journey via, you know, beatings and being kicked out and things starting and being great and then being moved on and all the rest of it, and actually getting to Rome, the centre of everything, to be in this place of influence for the gospel? He got there via a shipwreck and trials where he could have been killed and appealing to Caesar and all this kind of stuff. So what is God calling you to do? What's the big picture thing on your life? And will you pay the price? Will you take up your cross and follow him through all the difficulties on the way to it? Because when we preach, those of us who preach, you know, we tell you the glory stories, we tell you the amazing things that God done, but it's really hard in a preach to tell you the months and sometimes years of pain between what God said and how it wonderfully turned out in the end. And sometimes, you know, there's failure. You know, Jesus died a failure. Everyone thought he'd failed. And yet here we are 2,000 years later. He was the most influential person who ever lived. He's had more effect on the world than any other person. And when he died, very few people knew who he was. He was only known in some little backwater of the world where nobody went and no one was interested. And he died young, a criminal's death. And yet it echoed through eternity and beyond. So what are you called to? What's the big picture call? And how are you going to see it through? Who's the team? How are you going to build a relationship with God that sees it through? How are we going to get there? That would be what I'd ask you to prayerfully think about as you finish the book of Acts today.